I know you're a Republican. I know you were governor of Utah with the support of the party and many other people. Does that not represent, well, let me put it to you this way. Could you be nominated by the Republican Party of Utah today?
The answer is no. And that's a sad commentary on where we find ourselves today. It's maybe a sad commentary on one's willingness to want to speak out honestly and truthfully about the real issues that we face today. I think, Jeff, it is an angry moment that we're experiencing now in politics where, and listen, I'll just be very honest with you here. I was banished from a Republican gathering a few short weeks ago for saying something on television that a few people didn't like.
Was this back in your home state? Or?
No, this was a gathering in Florida that I was invited to keynote with a lot of fundraisers and such. They asked if they wanted somebody who could talk about, international trends or whatever, not just the typical campaign stuff. So sure, I'll help where I can. Well, I had the temerity on television to suggest that the Republican Party, maybe the duopoly generally, was losing a little bit of momentum, creativity, vision, and good ideas. And that was likely going to set the stage for an alternative angle of attack that might be a third party or an alternative voice out there that might not be altogether unhealthy given where we are today. Because I do believe the only way we're going to really be able to address not the economic deficit, but the trust deficit, which I think is just as corrosive longer term as the economic deficit, is by having candidates running on a platform that call for basic structural change in our system. By that I mean term limits. We all know that this nation needs term limits. We wouldn't even be talking about this guy, Senator Hatch, who's running for a 7th term if we had term limits. We shouldn't even be having this conversation. We need to infuse new energy and ideas into the system, and today that's just not allowed. There's this thing called incumbency that reaches up and grabs people and grows very deep roots. Pretty soon people don't want to leave. And I think that also results in long-term crony capitalism on Capitol Hill.
But
people
for
are picking up
pains,
on that
you were
part.
told, never mind coming to Florida?
They called and said it would be better if you didn't show. And I said, thanks. I, was hoping to have a free weekend at some point. And my first thought was, this is what they do in China on party matters. They punish you if you say something that is off script, but not here. We should be having an open, wide-ranging discussion about what works and what doesn't for the sake of the United States. I mean, our base ought to be the people of the United States as opposed to some corner of a Republican or Democratic Party. So I was dinged for that because I really do believe, having been through 1,000 town hall meetings and having met with a lot of great people in this country, the trust deficit is real. People feel it to their core. They don't trust their elected leaders anymore. They don't trust their institutions of power, banks that are too big to fail. And how do you get from here to where we need to be in order to overcome this trust deficit? Term limits? I really do believe that's what this nation's got to fight. Campaign finance reform. This system is so broken. You can get people of average intelligence in a room, and there's no way, no how they'd come out with the system that we have today. It's a joke. It's a laughingstock. That's got to be fixed.
Yes, but you do have a small problem there, which is that until the Supreme Court is changed, this is a First Amendment issue. You have 5 Supreme Court justices who say money is speech. You can't pass any federal legislation that will sustain itself because it will be knocked down as a First Amendment violation. And I believe that this court, as it stands now, is preparing to do more in that field of unraveling regulations. And you can call for it, and most Americans support it, but it seems to me on this case, both parties, it was Barack Obama who broke a public pledge to accept, public financing in 2008, and as soon as he found out he could raise a ton more money than McCain, said, never mind. So between the impulse of politicians and moneyed folk to do as much as they can, and the Supreme Court, how do you get campaign finance reform?
Here's the deal, Jeff, and we can go back and talk Buckley-Vallejo, 1971, 72. Everybody, is familiar with that case and beyond. What it's going to take is a president and I'm not being at all political here, I'm just being very honest, a president who is willing to use some serious political capital right up front and to say, almost as if, 1912, the election of 1912 was a reform election, with Theodore Roosevelt, William Howard Taft.
Wilson won.
Yeah, well, the history of those two, and it didn't go over so well. But Roosevelt had reform on his mind, and 12 was a reform year, whether it was consumer protection, whether it was the environment, whether it was corporations that needed to be tamed. And here we are 100 years later. And I would say we fought wars in the interim. We've had a lot of economic growth. Our population has surged. We're a much different player on the world stage. We need another round of reform, which means a president who isn't just going to focus on economic or foreign policies, but say, hold on a minute, folks, we've got to get it right in this country if we're going to pass down to the next generation what they truly deserve. And that will require a reform agenda. It will require a president who's willing to use some real political capital on day one to say, campaign finance reform, and here's how we're going to fight it, led by the people. The people want to get it done, I can tell you that. Term limits, redistricting in a fair and balanced way, taking out of the hands of politicians. And how about simple things like just not paying Congress until they can balance a damn budget?